There we go. Good to go.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining today. We're going to get going with the today's webinar, in-season impact, dig into faster, smarter evaluations with TeamGenius and the JVA. I'm Gabe here from TeamGenius Customer Success, and I'm going to go through our presentation today. We've got today's agenda, so it's going to be a quick intro from me and Gabe Molinsky here from TeamGenius. We're going to go over why run player evaluations and not just tryouts. Kerrilyn from Flatirons Volleyball Club is going to chat about how she's used TeamGenius and what they do with in-season evaluations. We've got some sample player evaluations we're going to show. Most common eval criteria as used by organizations that use TeamGenius and others that we've seen. A little peek into TeamGenius and a Q&A. So we'd love to have anybody that's on the webinar here today share your video and let us know what questions and comments you have at the end, or you can certainly welcome to share your video as we're going here too. So this is being recorded, so we'll share this later on for anybody that can't stay for the whole thing or wants to relive some of the amazingness. So yeah, so first off, I'm Gabe here from TeamGenius. I've been here for 7 years. I was one of the first employees here at TeamGenius. I've got 4 kids. I've been working with youth sports for a long time, back from when I was in middle school and high school, all the way up through being a varsity athlete in college, and now endurance sports, biking, running, cycling, all this kind of stuff. And I help manage some of the customer success process, as well as doing these webinars and trade shows with Gabe Molinsky. Gabe, you want to say a little about yourself?
Yeah, also Gabe, I've worked with TeamGenius for the last, it'll be 7 years in February. So a long time, similar to Gabe on that timeline. I started as just a sales guy and then worked my way into the customer success team as well. Currently work with about 220 different accounts with TeamGenius, and also help to manage our sales process. So see quite a few different sides of the business, and grew up playing hockey and football, so no background in volleyball, but with some of the clubs that I've worked with, I think gained a bit of knowledge into how volleyball clubs best run tryouts as well as in-season evaluations. So excited to dive into that more here today.
And so here we are, TeamGenius. You can see our picture here, both of us at AVCA last year. We'll again be at AVCA coming up December here in Louisville, and like to see anybody that's on the call or watching the webinar in person. It'd be awesome. As you can see here, we've helped over 60,000. I'm guessing it's probably over 100,000 players through evaluations with in volleyball through TeamGenius. We work all across North America. We do work with a lot of organizations in Canada, all across the United States, and other places in the world as well. So we've got a fair depth and breadth of knowledge in volleyball, and just want to share some of that with everybody here today. We are partnered with the JVA, and so today's webinar is a partnership with the JVA. We're going to have Brianna on later today, and the JVA offers club directors, coaches, junior volleyball educators tools you need for a successful junior volleyball program, club and tournament program. So they do some great stuff, and they're also you'll be able to reach out to Brianna after this, and she will be on the webinar at a later point here. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gabe Molinsky.
Yeah, so I think that one of the big questions that Skelly and I got from our team when we decided that we were going to be hosting a webinar all around in-season evaluations is, hey, why are we going to be hosting this? Why is this valuable to volleyball clubs? Because at this point, not a ton of volleyball clubs are doing in-season evaluations. And so we looked back in the archives of our blog, and we pulled this blog when we first started getting into the in-season realm and helping soccer clubs run in-season evaluations. And I thought that there were some good points that we found in this blog. And so first one being, running in-season evaluations and not just tryouts. It's really a good way to get a better picture of the player, because you can have coaches evaluate on criteria like attitude, leadership, coachability. It's maybe a time when you have more time as well to actually spend with each player and measure their height or their vertical jump, other criteria that you might not have time to capture at an hour-long tryout, right? And so that's really a good time to capture a bigger picture of what a player can bring to the club and to their team. Another piece of that that the Team Genius system helps with, but also just overall trying to track the progression of a player and finding those players who are developing faster versus maybe the players who are focusing on a different sport and more so just playing with the club to have a good time, right? And there's nothing wrong with either of those things, but this is a point where you can sort of get a gauge on who are those players that are developing really quickly and who's maybe falling a bit behind. So tracking progression, point two there. The third one, addressing concerns. And I think the next three really go hand in hand. So addressing concerns with players and saying, hey, you are falling behind, and we want you to work on these few things if you want to continue to be on this top team or to push, push onto that top team if you aren't already at that point. So addressing concerns with the parents, and then also providing, so that's kind of providing the feedback to the players, but not just the players, right? Talking to them at practice, but talking to the parents as well, because that player might not go home and tell their parent that they are falling behind and coach said I need to work on these things. And so really being able to communicate to the parent as well as the player. And then overall just improving your communication with both the parents and the players and helping to set expectations with them for the following year, because if they are falling behind, they need to know that, so they should maybe get some additional training in the off season. And so I think all three of those things really do help to set playtime expectations, because if they are not doing the best, then maybe they might not be starting every single match, every single game. And then, as I point out here, just setting off-season training goals, limiting future team placement surprises. So if they don't make the team next year, they're not distraught, and they maybe were prepared and knew that they weren't completely focused on what their weaknesses were. And so I think those things can all, like I said, go hand in hand, but really do put you in a better place if you are doing in-season evaluations. And the last thing, just preparing for the next season. Whether you're the best player on the club or one of the weaker players, you need to keep moving forward. It's the famous saying, if you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not growing, if you're not getting better every single season, then you're probably falling behind. And so allowing the coaches to communicate with the player and the parent is a great way to really help those players grow at the rate that they are needing to. And also, those parents are probably spending a good chunk of money to really get that feedback and know that they are putting their players in somebody's hands who's going to help them develop. We'll send out that blog as well after the webinar today. I want to introduce Kerrilyn. Kerrilyn has been working with Team Genius for a few years now, kind of a longtime customer. And Kerrilyn's out in Colorado. I'll let her introduce herself, but appreciate you coming on here, Kerrilyn, and we'll let you talk a bit about your experience with not just Team Genius, but overall in-season evaluations.
Yeah. Hi. I've been coaching with Flatirons Volleyball Club for the last 10 years. Susan is on the call as well. She's our director. We're actually starting our 26th season, so we've been around for quite a long time, and we've used lots of different methods, of evaluating players. We started with Team Genius a couple years ago.
Hello?
And,
Hi there, this is Eric calling from Jones.
oh, somebody talking. Sorry, I thought I was getting some feedback there. We've been using. We started Team Genius mostly for like our tryouts, and then we realized, we have a lot more opportunities to use Team Genius for in-season evaluations. End of season evaluations. We've always done a mid-season evaluation with our players, just trying to address a lot of the issues. Number one, playing time. We all hear why is my kid getting this certain amount of playing time, and we would have our meetings with players. You have your notes, you have it on paper, and it took forever, and you jot down your notes on your little tiny, would have a piece of paper with all these little notes, and you hand that to the kid, and they, you don't know if that goes to the parent or not. And so we would, it worked as well as it could, but I think now that we have our TeamGenius evaluations and we're able to do that mid-season, and I'm able to actually put all of our data in there where we take, height and we do verticals. I can send that all out to every single player and every single parent, because we know that the players don't always translate what was said to them from the coach to their parent. They're like, well, I don't know what they said. They said I need to do better at something. It's pulling teeth getting, if I have a younger son who's 14 and an 11-year-old, there's no way I get the full story when I ask, how did that go? So it's been really, really helpful for us to have a mid-season and an end of season evaluation. We set it up in that way. And then our coaches really appreciate it too. We've had really positive feedback from our coaches. They like how quickly they can make the assessment. I use it. I have my own team, I coach as well. So I use it to add in comments. I can add in video. I can do a lot of stuff, and then I can share that with the player and the parent, and it looks really professional. I customize it so it looks, from Flatirons with their colors and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of a quick rundown of how we use it, other than, just, yes, here's one of our players here for one of our in-season evaluations, and we can do also, I also use it to track players that are just internal notes that are just for us, for our administration, and we can kind of get ahead of the game if there's any issues, like, hey, has a kid been missing practices? Have they missed a tournament? Usually you don't hear about that until something blows up, or we get an angry parent call, and and then we've got to scramble and talk to the coach and figure out what happened. This is, if we already have this in advance, we can say, well, wow, it looks like they've missed a lot of practices, or we can go to the coach and say, hey, I'm seeing, this kid's missing, stuff, or they've got attitude issues. How can we help? How can we, better assist you with that player? So it helps us in the admin department to, get ahead of things and see what's really going on teams, because we practice at different schools, so we're all at different locations, so we don't always get to see the kids, and we don't always get to talk to our coaches. So it's just been really helpful to give us an overall picture of what's going on each team.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
Yeah, and Kerrilyn, so for this evaluation, this mid-season player feedback, this is the one that you share with the players, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, that's the one that will go to the players. So yeah, so you can see where we're tracking that we have their height, we have their vertical, their touch, and then we score them on their skills.
Nice. And in what format is this data collected? Do you have all the coaches do this on the same day at the same
No, I give
facility?
them a date. I say, like, if I say, February 17th, coaches, you need to have your midseason evaluations done. I will be sending them out to parents on this date. And, I do have to kind of sometimes, track down those coaches and that haven't quite finished them, but that's what's really nice, is I can pop on TeamGenius. I can see who's completed. I can see what percentage that they've completed, they've started it or they haven't started it. And so I can, send them a quick reminder, hey, don't forget, you need to, get this evaluation going. So I can, and that's where I can add in all my notes, and so that's how we do it. Instead of trying to get it all done on one day, because I add in notes and we add in comments, and that takes a little bit extra time.
Mm-hmm. And what age do you start evaluating players? Is there an age maybe you think that would be too young to evaluate a volleyball athlete?
I don't think so. I mean, we have, if normally we'll have 12s through 18s, and even if we have a 12s team, we'll start evaluating them. I will simplify. I mean, we didn't do it this year or last season to simplify their evaluation, but we track it, and it's good. It's good feedback for the player. It's good feedback for the parents. And then what's really nice too is even if we get, our goal is to, maintain our players, keep them within our club. So if they're growing with us, we can go back and look, well, hey, you started out here and now, we're scoring you, we're rating you at this point, or your verticals increase. But it's like, the data is already collected. I don't have to go find it in some other spreadsheet that I, have in some dark space of my computer. So it's actually, we evaluate all of the players, especially like on our tryouts. We'll make the evaluations a little bit more simple for the younger kids. But yeah, I mean, I think there's no reason to separate out that evaluation for ages.
I think that probably aligns with even other sports that are using Team Genius to evaluate their athletes in season. Is the older the player gets, the more technical the skills become, and therefore the younger the kid is, just keep the criteria more simple, and maybe just have one skills uh, criteria versus having 7 different ones, right? And then also evaluate their attitude and their leadership and coachability, because those still matter, and that's going to probably form a better player long term versus even any technical skills they have when they're younger. And every kid, it's more just how athletic is this kid, right?
Right. Yeah.
So,
Where are they going to develop? So
hmm.
I think that's how we use it with our younger kids.
Awesome. Well, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with our next slide that we have. Skelly, I'll let you talk about this one.
Yeah. So we pulled kind of our most common evaluation criteria that we see people use. And, you guys mentioned on some of these that you guys do some of these things. So, serving, setting, attacking, blocking, passing, defense, height, standing, reach, serve, receive, all those kind of things that are measurables on, how the player is doing in their athletic ability. And then the other things like kind of more, intangibles, so communication, attitude, leadership, coachability, volleyball IQ, athleticism, competitiveness, all these kind of things that, you can give them a rating on. I think a lot of those too, it makes sense to do more verbal or typed out communication on those. So putting in the actual notes on, how the player is doing. I see some clubs too on some of these, they might expand on, might be something like coachability. And they might use our video option to flip their, phone or device selfie style and do video feedback on, what that player can do to improve and how they're doing on their, leadership or coachability or their athleticism, and share those, which come out pretty nice to our reports too. But these are kind of the main ones we see. And I think, for tryouts, we usually say, keep things to like 5 to 7 criteria is usually the easiest. I think for in-season evaluations, depending upon how much time you give your coaches and how much effort you want them to put in, you can definitely do a more in-depth evaluation. So you can have, 10, 15 things if you want to break it out into the individual criteria. But yeah, these are the ones that we see the most with clubs across the board for volleyball in-season evaluations.
Yeah, and there's definitely some overlap within this, right? Some people like to evaluate maybe position specific. And so that's maybe where you see some of these come in, because not everybody maybe needs to be evaluated on, let's say, digging or approach, right? And so there's different criteria, there's different setups that people will use within Team Genius. So these are just kind of to give you some ideas on what criteria you might want to put into your evaluation. Don't take this as, hey, you should be evaluating all 22 of these criteria. Yeah.
And people can, put in their own customized stuff that Melissa will show you. But like, with flat irons, or if you're a new club, you could have like, iron score, where it's like the score for your specific club and something you put together with different things that you make the kids do. You never know. It's like, here's your special score and your own criteria. So we can customize everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I know that there was some requests in the chat when we sent this out to see a Team Genius demo quick. So we'll go through a really high level demo. If anybody does want to see more on what Team Genius can do, and if this is right for your club, you can always reach out to us on our website with the contact form, or email any of our team members. So this is the back end of Team Genius we're going to be showing today. Like I said, we'll keep this really high level, but there's also the front end. The front end of Team Genius is the mobile app itself. It's a mobile scoring app. So in the app, you can download it on your phone or tablet, and it would ask you for your name, your email, and an access key. If you want to dive into a sample assessment to see what the scoring experience is like, you can just use the sample access key VBALL, VBALL, and that will bring you into a sample assessment so you can score those sample players and just kind of see the experience your coaches would have during an in-season evaluation or at a tryout. And there's also a web evaluation app that looks very similar, and that's found at eval.teamgenius.com, and you can just use a sample access key VBALL again, and that will bring you into a sample assessment so you can see the experience your coaches would have. On the back end, everything is pretty simple. It's not rocket science by any means. It really just works top left down. And so we're in a sample assessment right now that's for end of season evaluations, or even ongoing evaluations might be the better term for this. And it starts with setting up your scoring forms. So adding in here, again, like we talked about, what criteria you want to score the players on. Those can be subjective, scales of 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 1 to 3, or they could be quantitative. So timed drills, height, weight, vertical jump, anything like that, any measurables. And the last piece in here that you can do is, let's say you are measuring on something like leadership or attitude, you could score on like a grading scale, A, B, C, D, F. Not like you would want to do that maybe, because the last thing you want to do is remind them of school if they're an athlete, right? But maybe something like coachability, you could score them on needs improvement, poor, average, above average, excellent. So you can pick the scale. You totally customize what scale you want to score your players on, or you want your coaches to score your players on. On the left side, also, you can decide how many times you're going to evaluate your athletes. So if you're going to evaluate them mid-season and end of season, you can set that up in here. And the last piece that I'll touch on under setup is this comments AI assistant feature. So within the evaluation part of TeamGenius, if you do go into score the players, we select one of our teams here, we can score them, or the coaches would score them, and then based on that score, you can generate a comment for that specific criteria. And so you can see here that Allison demonstrates solid foundational skills in passing. Maybe that's not true, right? But you can fill in the blanks on this, and this just gives you a really good starting point. So that AI feature helps to make this process a bit quicker for coaches. Again, it's not a perfect comment, but it does give you a really good starting point and hopefully some really good format for the coach to use in order to give that feedback to the player. And that's our comments AI assistant feature, brand new this year.
Well, I'm excited about that.
I know that'll be nice for coaches in the future. I don't think it's been utilized too much in the volleyball space, but some other sports who've used it have really enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely.
People add their players in a few different ways. You can add your teams into TeamGenius with our TeamSnap integration. Sports Engine and league apps are a bit different, more so for tryout importing, but you can always add from a CSV file, or if you use TeamGenius for tryouts and you form your teams in TeamGenius, you can just add your teams into your in-season assessment from the teams you formed at tryouts. And then coaches are added into the system at the top under Manage Coaches, and then you can add them into their team as well under Player Pools. This is all stuff that we can help with as well, so don't feel like you need to look back at this recording and try to figure this out on your own. We help to onboard our new customers and give support to those who are still using the system year after year. So once the coaches are in the system, then you can go to the Assign Coaches page, and you're able to easily click this email icon, and that will send out an email invitation to all of the coaches who have been assigned to a team. In this case, there's 4 coaches assigned to 3 different teams because Sarah and Kim are both coaches for the 16U team. And this box right here indicates they've been assigned that coach evaluation, and now you can see those emails have been sent out to those coaches. They'll get a really easy, simple, kind of basic email that says, click, you've been assigned an evaluation, click here to get started. And then as they progress through that evaluation, you'll see these percentages start to go up. And so as they do start to complete those evaluations, you can go to the results page and you can analyze those results. If we just look at let's say our 14U team right here, you can see that based on these scores so far, Ashley was our best player on the 14U team. If we want to dig into more of those scores, we can go into this different view. And then you can start to click on those scores if you want to see who scored Ashley and how. And then you can see comments on the far right side. If you want to read through all the comments to make sure they're appropriate, to make sure it's quality feedback, great. Takes a bit of time, but it might be worth it. And then after you do analyze the data to make sure it looks good, you can easily go to send emails under our messaging tab. And then you're able to select the team that had their evals complete. You select all of your players. You can check this box that you want to include reports. You decide which of those reports you want to be included, mid-season and end of season, or just one of the two. And then at the bottom, you click create message, and you can easily select a template that you can create ahead of time, or we do have some sample templates in there for you as well. And then each player, once you hit send at the bottom, will get a customized email basically that says, hey, their name, great job at our lesson today. I wanted to give you some feedback and areas worked on for next time. Right. And then that's where they click on that report, and it brings them to that report that we showed earlier while Kerrilyn was talking. And then they have that screenshot of their report until they delete their email. So they can always look back at that email, this email and the report to see how they did last year versus this year. And then the system does track player development as well. So year after year, as you use the system, you can send out player development reports. And we have some pretty exciting stuff coming with this as well long term. We have another AI feature right here, the generate email button. That's where you can use basically ChatGPT to have that type out an email for you. And you can choose different styles, like informative, enthusiastic, Ted Lasso, right? It's kind of a funny one. Keep it short, make it a little more longer. If you want to include their first name or their guardian's name instead, you can put all that stuff in there. So it's a pretty sweet feature. I certainly enjoy that one. I think it's great for tryouts, maybe more so than for in-season evaluations. But that is kind of a high-level overview of the TeamGenius system and how it works for in-season evaluations. So,
and you can see if they've opened the email.
yes, you can. I'm glad you brought that up. You can click on email
I've
history.
seen we were like, I know you've seen the email.
Exactly. Yep. You can see if they opened the email or if they've clicked into the link as well. And so you can say, well, this player didn't look at their report yet. It doesn't look like. So maybe you want to reach out to them and just remind them that they do have that in their inbox. So nowadays we all get way too many emails, and it's easy to overlook something, especially even if it's as important as in-season evaluations with a feedback report in it. So overall, there's lots of benefits, I think, to using TeamGenius. You can always do this on paper and pencil and import that data to an Excel spreadsheet and try to create your own format through a Google Doc or something. It's just, it becomes a lot easier with an evaluation tool if you can make the investment. So
Can I add something in there on that?
yeah.
I have a story, or we used to do our end of season recommendations with Google Sheets, and we had a coach accidentally share his end of season spreadsheet with his entire team. So he saw all the every player saw his recommendations on whether or not we should bring kids back or the whole thing. And it was a nightmare. We had a lot of angry parents, a lot of angry kids. And so I can assure that never will happen again with using TeamGenius. So there's another little, those darn Google Sheets, they're handy, but it's also an issue that they can be shared with everybody. So.
Yeah, that's not the first time we've heard something like that. There's been some nightmare scenarios we've heard of. And that's usually when people start to look for something like a TeamGenius, because we have tried to make it as error proof as possible. So Yeah, so lots of benefits, I think, overall to using the TeamGenius system. And overall, between tryouts, in-season evaluations, as you use TeamGenius more, we do see most of our users save at least 40 hours per year or per event even, between integrations, player check-in processes, sending out email invitations to complete evaluations, putting together templates. And the great part, and Kerrilyn, you probably know all about this, as you do use TeamGenius year after year, you can just clone your assessment from the previous year, and then you're set up just like that. You can make some minor tweaks if you need to, but all you have to do at that point is just import your players.
So easy. Yeah, it saves a ton of time. Yeah.
Awesome. Gabe, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah. So as part of being the JVA webinar here and being a partner with JVA, we have a member discount. So the exclusive offer is $2 per player per year, your discount on our pro plan. An evaluation template that's customized for the JVA for a quick setup. With each of the player seat you have limited evaluations per year. So you can do tryouts and in-season and end-of-season evaluations, have those internal ones to keep that you don't send out. One-on-one training sessions with our team. So if you have over 150 athletes that you purchase right away, you get one-on-one training with me or Gabe Malinsky or Batania or multiple other people on our team. And we'll set you up for your tryouts, in-season evaluations if you want to do those now. We do that over Zoom, record it, and make sure you're all set. Our pro plan has pretty much everything we talked about today too. And so it gives you for our kind of almost at a lesser rate there. You can do video as an option if you want to do video feedback. You have email tracking for seeing how many players or parents open emails for either making sure they got their evaluations, or if you're doing those offers through email, you can make sure they got their offers and if they're accepting or not. And just all those different tools. One of the things I was going to mention too on that, having that ability to track email clicks is some of the clubs I work with that do in-season evaluations. They'll share them. And even a couple of years ago, I had a club saying, "Hey, we're looking at these and this looks kind of crazy. Is this right?" And they had 100 opens on a bunch of different emails. And it was because the players were sending around their reports to friends and family and their grandparents and opening them. So you can get a lot of traction on those emails, and that can be useful for a lot of things. Like if you guys put in like partners or people that you remarket things as part of your fundraiser programs, or share details from your club, or if you have camps and clinics that come up. So when you can get eyes on emails where they're getting open 100 times for a player in their family, that's pretty nice to also know that they're opening your emails for what you're sending out. But yeah, the big JVA partnership pricing special we'll share after here, and that's for anybody that's a JVA member. And I think, is Brianna on? Do you want to say a couple words about the JVA?
Hey, Gabes. Thanks for hosting this really beneficial session for JVA members. Yeah, as many of you know, JVA focuses on the needs of the clubs, and heading into season, all the club directors their wheels are turning and how they're going to make this season better for their athletes, how they're going to retain their athletes for next year. And TeamGenius really provides a solution for a lot of those headaches and concerns and questions that go through our head. As we go through season, we always think, oh, I wish I had that in my head at the start of season or earlier. And so this is a really beneficial session, and we're really thankful for our partnership with TeamGenius and what you all are able to do for clubs to keep them organized and really give a lot back to their coaches and their players. So thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for all you do as well. It's we always hear great things about the JVA, and it's fun to see you all at events like we have coming up at AVCA. So we're really excited for that in December, and to continue hosting webinars like this that provide value for everybody involved and everybody who can has the time to take a look.
Yeah, definitely. I know a lot of people will be listening later due to, crazy work schedules and life, but yeah, this is a good one, and we're looking forward to many more with you all. So thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, with that being said, I think that about concludes what we had prepared for today, but wanted to open it up for any other questions or tips that people have to provide to anybody else who might be viewing this afterwards. I know some of the big questions we had were around the criteria that people should be using during an in-season evaluation versus a tryout. So I think just to reiterate what we had said earlier, I think using things that you don't have time to measure at tryouts and maybe might not know at that point. So evaluating on things like we keep saying it, attitude, leadership, coachability, overall athleticism, attendance, focus, work ethic, things like that, where you're not going to see that in an hour-long tryout session or even 4 tryout sessions, but you need to see the player for 5 months throughout a season to really know how long that does last, and get a true impact on how the player is working with their teammates and such. The other big question was around, all right, at what age should we start evaluating players? I don't think there's an age that's too young. Kerrilyn and I seem to agree on that. I think that it's, hey, if your player is coming to the club to play a sport, they're probably ready to compete or ready to do something that's and contribute to something that's bigger than themselves, right? So you can already start to give feedback on certain things like those intangibles, and help them develop as a person, not just as an athlete. And then as they do progress to the older ages, evaluate on more technical skills seems to be an appropriate way to gear your criteria and scoring forms.
I think even some of those younger aged evaluations would be more fun. So you got younger kids, it's more, maybe fun things and less critical, maybe, as you make it a little more critical on some of the skills as kids progress through the ages. And it's more like you got to get, hyper focus on this thing and this thing and get super good. And I've seen some organizations where it's like, yeah, they're doing good at this thing and they could get a little more athletic, but they're at age level and those kind of things. And I think like the younger kids really love getting reports like that too, especially with the custom reports you can do with. It looks like basically a baseball card or volleyball card, and they print them out with their picture on it. So,
yeah, I love the picture function. I know it's probably a minor part of it, but having the pictures, when you're seeing hundreds of kids, it's so helpful. And even I can send a report to a coach that has that, has all. Some of them are, because some of the coaches are like, I can't remember that kid, and I can I send them the picture or they send them the report, and they're, oh yes, that one. And even I was talking with some of my players the other night, and we were talking about how much they've grown, and I've coached them for 2 seasons now, and I go back and look at their previous picture that they had that I just had, and I was like, I'm just, the massive growth that you don't really see because I haven't seen them in a long time, and like, wow, what a difference, what a change, just, and we can actually like track that, and it's just, that part of it's really cool too.
mm-hmm.
I know one of the big problems that people will have during in-season evaluations is actually getting the coach to complete the evaluation, because so many of these coaches are busy with day jobs or their kids or their teams and trying to put together practice plans. So how do they prioritize a mid-season or end of season evaluation when they already see the kid every day? They can already talk to the kid every day. And we all know there is value in getting an actual feedback report to them, not just for the player, but for the parent as well to see that. But I think something interesting I've heard, and I'd be curious to hear if there's any other strategies that work for you all, but I've heard that some people will offer like an incentive for when that coach completes the evaluation. So if there's a few coaches really pushing back on in-season evaluations, say, all right, we're going to offer a $10 coffee gift card to whoever completes their end of season evaluation. And then that gives them a reason to do that. We've even heard I think it was a lacrosse club out on the East Coast who withheld like the last paycheck until they completed their evaluation. And I thought that was so interesting that they did do that. So any experience you've all had with that, or do you usually get pushback from coaches?
Yes, we're a big volleyball group and in BC, so we've actually withheld our last payment as well to finish the end of the year. So it's upwards of $1,200. So
yeah,
there's incentive for them to get it done.
Yeah,
I think it'll be interesting too, as they have, if they use the AI tool, if you guys enable that, just to see if that helps. And then On the other side of that, I've seen there's one club in particular I saw that the coaches were just hitting that all the time and not even necessarily reading it, which is, you want them to be involved enough as that they're going to put some of their own comments in there too, along with the scoring of the kids. But we try to do everything to make it, helpful for the coaches and clubs, because it seems like it's interesting to me as a parent is that's a sticky point, is that the coaches, a lot of times it's hard for them to get the time to put into those feedback things. Unless you really say, hey, you got to do this for the kids, because the parents certainly like it.
Well, definitely. I do also, I'll tell them a date that's earlier than when I need it. So that does help with, like, okay, they're a week late, but they're actually on time. So that one way that I can help with that is that just give it to them a little bit earlier. Say it's due on this date, and I really want it, maybe a week later or something. That helps.
What timing do you usually use for your, in or end of season evaluations? Like, do you have it where the coaches would do them like over holiday breaks or at very specific times in the season, or?
We try to hit like middle, just kind of middle. I mean, we are starting right now, like this is our first week of practices. So, we're trying to get those, evaluations out in February, which is kind of hard too, because haven't had that many tournaments. And even like this year, our tournaments have been pushed back. So, when we're going through April, so we'll still try to, I guess our goal will be like February, and then get something out at the end of the season as well. So that will help them see their progression.
Yeah, and it seems like the more time you give coaches, it can go one way or the other. Either that's going to help you to allow them to have, a month or two to complete those evals, or they're just going to postpone it until the very last week, and then they'll have forgotten about it, and you have to resend the link and give them a new access key or something. So there's kind of two different trains of thoughts on that. But I have seen it work well for some clubs, where if you open up that mid-season evaluation a month or two ahead of time, then they can more incrementally and slowly add the feedback they have for players. Maybe they're at practice and they have a quick minute while players are going through drills. All right, that's right, Sarah's doing great on this. And so you can start to give feedback throughout the whole season versus just in that final week. And so, yeah, that's one interesting thought that I've heard from others as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it's just I've heard from my coaches that they love the scoring. It's so fast, it's so easy. I think it's the comment section that can, slow them down a little bit. So it'll be really cool to see what they think this year with the AI stuff. I think that will be awesome. But it's also helpful that me and my admin people, we can go and, check through things and make sure there's not something in there that you're like, this is every single comment is the same. We can see this, but so that's why we have a little bit of oversight on that.
Have your coaches used the voice dictation option through their phones at all?
I don't think they have. I'm not sure if they know that they have that option. I send the videos for them to do the training. That's all in my breakdown. So, but that might be another thing to, help them speed up the process a little bit faster than typing everything out.
Yeah, I'm not a big typer on my phone. So you just, for that option, you just click on the text box and then use the little, microphone icon on your keyboard, and it starts typing out what you're saying, which I like to show people too, because I like doing that. I'm not a good phone typer. So
yeah. Well, yeah, it's definitely, I think that was one thing with the tryouts, they didn't want to do it on their phones as much because they didn't feel like they could see it as well. So, I'm like, well, you can always go back and do it on an iPad or your computer later on, but that's nice to have like the voice dictation. That would be a really good idea to, push them towards.
One other thing I bring up too for anybody on here is the idea of kind of prescriptive feedback too. So I've got a couple clubs that'll have for each one of your criteria, 5 different things that are here's 2 things that you should do to improve at whatever feedback you got, or here's we have gym sessions at these times you can show up with, or there's, you should talk to this coach in strength and conditioning to do these things. And so you could set those as preset comment snippets, and the coaches could drop those in on top of their, other feedback as something kind of prescriptive to maybe even get better at whatever the thing is that they're looking at.
I like the comment snippets. I like that a lot. I think that I use it mostly in the tryouts, but I could actually add those into the evaluations, so that they can, yeah, because it's super fast and really easy to just add that in if you don't want to, sit there and type up a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if there's nothing else, I think we can wrap up there. But thank you everyone for joining. Kerrilyn, thanks for all the feedback. Travis, thanks for chiming in there. Lindsay, thanks for joining live here. And Susan, thank you as well. It's been an awesome session. We'll plan to send out all the resources we've mentioned via email here today, and the recording as well once that processes. But if there's any questions after this, or you want to explore TeamGenius, or just have questions on in-season evaluations, whether that means to you giving feedback, getting team recommendations for the future year from your coaches, any of that, we're happy to give feedback to people who don't even use TeamGenius. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And thank you again for joining and registering.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.